doing mug number 8 today. Alright, it says, first sentence, for Halloween, my boyfriend Ollie dressed up as a roaring, fire-breathing dragon. What does that need? First of all, how many independent clauses do we have in that sentence? Is there more than one, or is it just one?
One.
Just one. Alright, so we know we don't have to combine with anything else, so no semicolons or anything like that. So this just needs some commas and some other punctuation and some spelling stuff. So, yes, so Halloween is spelled H-A, not H-O. Alright, what else?
Comma after Halloween.
Why?
Because it separates for Halloween and my boyfriend as a subject right after.
Yes. So the rest of the sentence, my boyfriend Ollie dressed up, that's a full independent clause, and then we have an introductory clause at the beginning. So it's just adding some information. So we're going to separate it. Okay, so for Halloween, comma. What else?
Comma after roaring.
After what?
Roaring.
Comma after roaring. Why?
Because you're describing the dragon as two things.
Yes. We have two adjectives, two describing words side by side. The dragon is roaring and the dragon is fire breathing. Does that make sense? Okay, what else?
Is fire breathing hyphenated?
Yes. Hyphenate the word fire breathing. It's like a double adjective that's put together, so we need to hyphenate it. Okay?
Is that it?
Nope.
Is Ollie in a positive?
Yes. So add commas before and after Ollie because it's giving us extra information. If I take out his name, does the sentence stay the same as far as meaning? Yes. I don't need to know what her boyfriend's name is, but she's letting us know. And so we need to put Ollie in commas to separate it. Anything else?
They give us a period. No.
All right, take out the word up. So you can just say, for Halloween, my boyfriend Ollie dressed as a roaring blah, blah, blah. You don't have to say dressed up as, okay? All right, any questions about any of that? Okay, next sentence. On Saturday night, some teens in my neighborhood dressed up as vampires and gals write some funny songs and went Halloween style caroling.
There's no period in ghouls is spelled wrong.
Okay, gals is actually spelled right.
Oh, I thought it was supposed to say ghouls.
Nope, that's right actually. That's okay.
Sorry.
It's okay. And then yes, you need a period at the end of the sentence after caroling. All right. What else? It's kind of hard to read because that's how badly written it is. So
After night, there should be a comma.
yes. So on Saturday night, comma, because again, another introductory phrase. There's a prepositional phrase on Saturday night. All right.
Does Saturday need to be capitalized?
Yes. Capitalized days of the week.
Comma after ghouls or gals or whatever.
Yes, so we are listing, right, activities that they did. So we have that they dressed up, that they wrote funny songs, and that they went Halloween style caroling. There's 3 things, right? So when we have a list of things that we are doing or saying or whatever, you need to separate it with commas. So the after gals, that's the first thing that they're doing, there needs to be a comma. What is the second thing that they're doing?
They wrote some funny songs.
Yeah, so they wrote some funny songs. So remember how we said that if you have a list of 3 things, before that last thing, you can put a comma in there if you want to. It's not wrong, but you don't have to put a comma. It's called an Oxford comma. So it's not necessary to put a comma before the last list item. Okay, so you can put a comma after songs, but you don't have to. Does that make sense? Okay, so we have 3 things that they're doing. All right, what else?
Right needs to be right.
Yes. So we need to keep all of our verbs in the same tense. So dressed is in past tense, went is in past tense, and so we need to put right in past tense, wrote. What tense is right in? Present tense, so we need to change it. Okay, what else?
Halloween style is another hyphenation.
Yes, hyphenate, Halloween style. Okay. And one more thing.
Does dressed up need to become dressed?
Yes. So same thing as above. In my neighborhood, dressed as. You don't have to say dressed up as. Okay. All right. Any questions? Alrighty. Okay. If you guys would take out your notes from last week on rhetoric, we're gonna finish those, and then we're gonna go into talking about your argumentative essay that will be due on the last day of class. All right. So we talked about rhetoric. What do we say rhetoric is?
The art or method of communicating effectively.
Yes. And what is the purpose of rhetoric?
To persuade.
To persuade. What does it mean to persuade?
To sway to your side.
Yep. To convince somebody. You're trying to get somebody to come over to your side of a belief or whatever the case might be. And then we talked about there's different ways that people persuade, different what's the word? Mediums. So we can do it through writing, like you can write an essay, or through an ad. You can do it through a speech. You can do it on magazine articles, whatever the case might be, a blog post, right? So all these ways are used to persuade. And then we learned about rhetorical analysis. So we have to look at some aspects of any artifact. So we looked at who the speaker is, what is their intention, what words are they using, what tone do they have, all that stuff. And then you had a homework assignment to do with that as well, right? Okay, so then we have the 3 appeals that we talked about are used in persuasion. What are the 3 appeals? They're the Greek words.
Yeah. That was
Logos,
the-
pathos, and ethos.
Yes, logos, pathos, ethos. What is logos? The use of what?
Use of logic.
The use of logic. So what is an example of logic being used or logos being used?
70% of the.
So statistics. Anybody with a degree, like the commercials that doctors show up and they're like dressed in like a white robe or white lab coat, doesn't necessarily mean that they are a doctor, but that's how it's being used. So then we have pathos. What does pathos stand for, or what is it?
Use of emotion.
The use of emotions. So how is that used, for example?
And sad commercials.
Sad commercials. We watched the one about organ donations with the puppy. So lots of like emotional things there. And then the last one is ethos, the use of what? Credibility, which means?
Somebody with trustworthiness or
Yes.
with good credit, yeah.
Yes, somebody that is trustworthy. So that can be everything from celebrities that people really like. I don't know if I mentioned this last class, but I don't know if you guys have like seen like the celebrity meals at McDonald's, for example. Like they have the packages like this celebrity or this athlete eats this at McDonald's, therefore you should too. And it's like a whole thing, and people actually do fall for it. I worked at McDonald's while I was in Bible school, so I know. So it's a whole thing, right? So we watched some commercials. We used some of those examples. We looked at the I Have a Dream speech by Martin Luther King. So if you'll flip to your last page in your notes with logic and logical fallacies. So we talked about how we are persuaded to do things or to believe things. So now we're going to talk about logic and logical fallacies. So in your notes, before we get to what's on the screen, sometimes, if you'll just follow along with me, sometimes propaganda tries to persuade through whatever means, even at the expense of the truth. Is that true? Do you agree with that statement?
Yes.
Yep. So it's your job to analyze whether or not something is true. Whatever information is being presented to you, it's your job to think about it, figure out, research if it's actually true. Okay? So logic is using credibility, or reasoning, whichever one you want to put there. Logic is using reasoning, reasoning, which is another word for facts, to determine the validity or the truth of an argument. So logic is using reasoning or facts to determine the validity or the truth of an argument. So that means that when you are presented with some sort of ad, some sort of commercial, some sort of something trying to persuade you to believe something, even a statistic that is put on TV or in a commercial. It's your job to go and look for the facts. It's your job to go research, is this actually true? Okay? The opposite of using logic, of using facts, of using information, is using logical fallacies. Logical fallacies are arguments that can be, we're going to use the word debunked, D-E-B-U-N-K-E-D, debunked through reasoning. So that means that it's wrong information, or it's an argument that's not actually valid, and if I can go look for some facts, I can tell you why that's not true. Does that make sense? Okay. Logical fallacies are found in debates. So any politicians arguing against anything, you'll see them there. When using the 3 appeals for your blink, so when using ethos, pathos, logos, the 3 appeals, you can find them when you're writing argumentative essays and just in everyday life. So for example, I don't know if your mom ever said this to you, for example, but if you go outside without a coat, you'll catch a cold and infect the rest of the family. Then your sister will have to miss class and she'll get a bad grade, and then it's just going to fail the whole course. That's a fallacy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just because you go out without a coat doesn't guarantee that you're going to get sick immediately. But even if you do, and your sister does have to miss a class, it means she's going to fail the entire class, right? So it's just adding on to things that aren't necessarily factual. So Aristotle identified about 15 fallacies, but there's a lot of them. So I'm just going to go through these really quickly just to give you examples of them. You don't obviously have a note sheet to go with this. But we're just going to go through these really fast. So just stay with me on the screen. So one of the names of the logical fallacy is the hasty generalization. So this is making assumptions about a whole group or a range of cases based on limited or inadequate evidence. So this is, for example, any toothpaste commercial does this a lot. 9 out of 10 dentists recommend Sensodyne toothpaste. So this is making an assumption about a whole group. So this is saying 9 out of 10 dentists, which means it's a portion of the entire dentist population. All dentists believe this. Does that make sense? So you're just generalizing an entire group, even though it's really just a small group. For all we know, they literally just asked 10 dentists and 9 of them said yes. Okay? So that's a generalization. Another one is ad hominem. This is an argument focused on attacking an opponent's or product's personality and character weaknesses rather than actual evidence. So they're attacking their person, that has nothing to do with like their actual work. So for example, Catherine is a bad choice for mayor because she didn't grow up in this town. What do the two have to do with anything? But because she didn't grow up here, we don't like her, therefore she's not a good choice for mayor. Does that make sense? We have the red herring. That is raising a side issue that distracts the audience from what is really at stake. So for example, say this person is like, I don't know, saying don't cut the trees, environment stuff. And then this one is saying, we can't worry about the environment, we're in the middle of a war. The two can mutually exist, right? Mm-hmm. They're not necessarily gonna cancel each other out. So anytime that a side issue distracts you from the real problem, that is called the red herring. False authority is using an expert to sell something, except they are not an expert in what they're selling. They're an expert in something else, such as Michael Jordan eats this burger. This is the Michael Jordan special. So this making them seem like an expert on burgers, even though he's an expert in basketball. Unrelated. Okay, this happens all the time. Slippery slope. This is a hyperbole. It means it's an exaggeration. So it says that if A happens, then B will happen, then C will happen, and then it's just going to keep leading into other things. The coat example that I gave you at the beginning is an example of this. But another example is if we make an exception for Josh's service dog, then other people will want to bring their dogs. Then everybody will bring their dog. And before you know it, our restaurant will be overrun with dogs. Their slobber, their hair, and all the noise they make, and nobody will want to eat here anymore. Mm-hmm. So again, we're just kind of like building. It's kind of like a snowball effect. This happens, and that's happened. I don't know if you guys ever read If You Gave a Mouse a Cookie when you guys were little. It's kind of that kind of deal. It's just saying things are going to snowball. If we let one thing happen, it's going to lead to all these other things. The either or, that means that you're only offering 2 choices and that's it. Like no in between, no gray area. So for example, the sign, either you love bacon or you're wrong. Okay, well, I can also like sausage, right? So either you do your homework or you fail. Either you sit down or you're going to the dean. Like, there's just no in between. Bandwagon. You guys know this term from football, probably. So it literally means the same thing. So it means that you're appealing to the popularity of an idea. So just because everybody's doing it, you should do it too. Everybody likes this football team right now, you should do it as well. Everybody's using the iPhone, you should too. All right. The next one is false cause, which means falsely identifying the real cause of an event. So, for example, I studied while listening to music, therefore music is the reason I failed a test. Well, not necessarily, okay? Or this chart that says global average temperature versus the number of pirates. So this is claiming that as the temperature goes up, then there's more pirates. That has nothing to do with each other. And again, these sound really silly when I'm doing this, but it does actually happen in real life. So just kind of keep these in mind. The next thing is post hoc. That's another cause and effect. It's to believe that because one event happened after another, the first event must have caused the second. So again, I wore my lucky socks and then I aced the test. Therefore, my lucky socks caused my success. My car was running fine until Jimmy borrowed it. Now it makes a funny noise. He must have done something to it. Okay. Circular reasoning, also known as begging the question. It's when a person uses this when they support a statement simply by repeating it in different words. So for example, my mother is always busy because she has too much to do. Busy and too much to do are the exact same thing. Okay. Non sequitur means literally means not in sequence. So the arguer reaches a conclusion that doesn't logically prove it. So for example, Mrs. Lewis will make Steve the baseball team captain. He is already the captain of the volleyball team. All birds have wings. That creature has wings. Therefore, it is a bird. Okay, so just there's no like true sequence of events. All right. So just wanted to bring those into mind because as you guys write your argumentative essay, I want you to remember to not use logical fallacies, but to actually use real evidence, real proof as you're arguing. Okay. So we're going to start talking about how to write your argument essay. I wanted to make some notes for you again, but the printer was not listening this morning. So we're just gonna, I do suggest that you take notes somewhere. You can even put it on the back of the note sheet that I gave you. But just take some notes so you know how to structure your essay, okay? So first of all, when you guys think of an argument, what do you think of? What do you think of a definition of an argument? What does that mean?
Going back and forth.
Okay, going back and forth with somebody. What else? What do you see in your mind when you think of an argument? Who do you imagine? Who do you argue with? I know you're not all peaceable. You guys don't argue with anybody? You argue with your cousins?
Oh yeah.
Argue with your siblings? If you're the youngest, you argue with the oldest. If you're the oldest, you argue with the youngest. You probably argue with your parents at some point in your lives about letting you do something, go somewhere, have something that they didn't want you to do, have, or go in that moment. Whatever the case might be. So when you have argued, what kinds of examples or methods have you used to get what you want? Don't worry, your parents can't like see this, so speak freely. What is something that you wanted to do, go, whatever, have? What did you use as an example to make them let you do that? Not that it worked, I'm just asking. Okay. What did you use?
The only one I can think of is when I was a kid.
Okay, go ahead.
And I used the fact that my dad made me move to North Carolina to come to make a wood pipe.
Okay, say that again.
I used the fact that my parents made me move to North Carolina when I was a kid to get my dad to eat a wood pie.
Okay.
It worked.
As punishment? Okay. All right. What else? Nothing else?
Anything right now?
You can't think of anything you've argued with your siblings about?
Well, like there was nothing to gain. It was just to argue for the sake of
Okay.
arguing.
Blackmail.
But you wanted to be right?
That's true.
right? Okay, or like over toys, maybe. I mean, Luna's one; she's already arguing about toys, so I
People
know
I
that
argue
happens.
with,
Neither of us are wrong in the
Okay.
argument, so it's,
All right.
I'm
Nothing you've ever tried to convince your parents to let you go do something, give you money.
I don't want to out myself, so.
Okay, that's fair. All right. I know, like for instance, when like I was a teacher with my friends, I was a good kid, and so my friends would always say like, oh, like, can we go ask their parents? Can we go somewhere? Blah blah blah, and they'd be like, no, and they'd be like, oh, well, Zoar's going. They'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, you can go because she's going. Has anybody ever done that? Have you heard that, seen that before?
Yeah.
Like you use the good friend, the good whatever to be like, if they're going, they're the responsible one. So therefore, I'm going to be allowed to go. So whatever the case might be, when we're arguing, obviously we want to persuade, right? We're trying to get somebody to think the same way that we're thinking, and there's some sort of outcome to that, okay? So what is an argument essay? You take the same kind of concept. So you're going to use logic and reasoning. So what do we say logic is? Just now, not long ago. What is logic?
Something with a credibility.
Yes. So it's reasoning. It's using facts. It's using research. It's using something that's actually sustainable to defend a position or a point of view. Okay. It's using reasons, evidence, examples that are used to convince the reader to consider a different point of view. It's a strong argument essay acknowledges the opposing viewpoints. So that is called the counter argument. So that means that I'm not just going to tell you what I believe, but I'm going to acknowledge that there's another side that believes something different. The counter argument is disputed with evidence. So I'm going to tell you what the other side believes, but then I'm also going to tell you why they're wrong. Okay? All right, so this is where I would start writing stuff if you haven't yet. So an argument is an attempt to convince someone to consider a different viewpoint. That's pretty straightforward. So you're trying to convince the other person to think differently than whatever they're thinking. So an example of this is taking a stand for or against electric cars. So if I'm for electric cars, then I would try to convince you to think as well that they are good for whatever cause. Then you have your thesis, which we've already talked about. Your thesis is your position taken as the writer. What are you trying to prove? The difference between this thesis and the thesis that you wrote about in your other paper is this thesis will only have 2 points that you're going to discuss, okay? So remember that in your other essay, a thesis was your main idea plus 3 main points. Do you guys remember that? Mm-hmm. So this one's going to be main idea plus 2 main points because the third body paragraph is going to be a counter argument, and we'll talk about that. And then you have reasons for your thesis. So this is a statement provided to support the thesis. So this is why is your claim correct? Okay, so why should all vehicles be electric? Well, 1, because they're better for the environment. Okay, everybody good with so far? You guys don't have to write like all the little examples, just and all that. All right, some more words. You have evidence. So this is your data, that's truth. You are going to use your data, your statistics, your quotes, your facts, all that stuff to support or prove your reason. So if you claimed that electric cars are good for the environment, then you're going to give me evidence to show why are they actually good for the environment. So for example, according to the Environmental Protection Agency, electric vehicles emit less greenhouse gases than gas-powered vehicles. That's my evidence, okay? Then you have a counter-argument. The counter-argument is the opposite, the opposing position. What does the other side believe? Okay, that is the counterclaim. So the other side believes that all vehicles should not be electric because electric cars cannot drive long distances without charging, for example. Does that make sense? And then you have a rebuttal. So once you present the counterclaim, whatever the other side believes, now you're going to tell us why that is not true. So disprove the counter argument. So they believe that electric cars actually, or that electric cars cannot drive long distances without charging. Well, that's not true because many electric cars can drive long distances without charging. Does that make sense? See what we're doing? I'll give you guys a minute. All right, so here's how you're going to bring it together. So we're going to start with the introduction, just like we did with the last essay. This is going to be a 5-paragraph essay again. So you start with your introduction. Same thing as before. You have your attention-grabbing statement, something, a fun fact, a statistic, whatever the case might be. You give some background information about your topic, anything that your reader needs to understand whatever you're going to be talking about. And then your thesis or your claim with your reasons. So for example, electric cars were invented more than 100 years ago. That is an interesting fun fact. Yes? They were, okay. Now we need to give background information. Battery-powered electric vehicles were on the roads in the late 1800s. Eventually, electric and gas-powered cars replaced horses for personal transportation. That is my background information. And now my thesis. Today, all vehicles should be electric-powered because electric cars are better for the environment, point number 1. And reason number 2, and they cost less fuel to fuel. Cost less to fuel. Okay, do you see that? So any background information. This one is only this is only 4 sentences. Obviously, you need to have 5. But again, define terms, give background information, explain anything that needs to be explained. So for example, somebody in my class did the opposite of this prompt. So they did why you should do normal vehicles, I forgot what they're called, but not electric vehicles, just normal vehicles. And so in their introduction, they define terms for me. So what is an electric vehicle versus what is the other type of vehicle? And then they introduce their acronyms and stuff like that. So any background information that we need on your topic should go in your introduction. Same thing that you did this past essay, okay? Are we good so far in the introduction? I'm going through this a lot faster because we've already been through the whole breakdown of this.
Right.
So you do your introduction, and then you body paragraph number 1. Again, you add a transition word or phrase, and then you do reason number 1. So reason number 1 that I gave in my introduction was that electric cars are better for the environment. So I'm going to give my first reason. That's your topic sentence, right? First, electric cars are better for the environment, blah, blah, blah. And then you give your evidence to support reason number 1. This is where your citations go. And then you explain and conclude. So, for example, first, all cars should be electric because they are better for the environment. That's reason number 1 for my thesis, right? Is it? Yes? Okay. Now I give my evidence. According to the Environmental Protection Agency, electric cars emit less greenhouse gases than gas-powered cars. And then my citation. This shows that electric cars are better for the environment because greenhouse gases can lead to a natural warming of the earth, blah, blah, blah. Okay? So this is an example. And again, this is not 5 sentences. This is just like a rough draft example of what a body paragraph should look like. Then you have the second body paragraph. It's the same as your first one, but with reason number 2. You're not going to use the word next, but additionally, all cars should be electric because they cost less to fuel than gas-powered cars. And then the evidence, and then your conclusion. Okay? Body paragraph number 3 is what's different than the rest of your essay. So body paragraph number 3, you're going to present your counter argument. What is a counter argument again?
That's the opposing.
Yes.
position.
So what does the other side believe? So some people believe that all cars should not be electric because electric cars cannot drive long distances. So I'm telling you, what does the other side believe and what is their reason? And then you're going to give a rebuttal. Why is what the other side believes not true? So this is not the case because many electric cars can travel long distances without charging. For example, Tesla's Model S can drive approximately 370 miles without stopping for a charge. Citation. This means it is possible to drive long distances in an electric car without needing to stop and recharge. Do you see what's happening? So first two body paragraphs, you're giving your reasons for your argument. In the third body paragraph, you're presenting the opposite side's position and what they believe, and you're disproving what they believe. You're giving evidence for why that's wrong. Does that make sense? So the third body paragraph is the only thing that's different than the rest of the other essays. Okay, and then you do your conclusion. So transition word or phrase, you restate your thesis again, you summarize your reasons again, and then you just finish strong. So in conclusion, all cars should be electric. Electric cars are better for the environment and they cost less to fuel. When it is time to purchase a car, an electric vehicle is clearly the best choice. And we're done. Okay? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think it's pretty straightforward. It's a lot easier to write an argumentative essay with this structure than the other one that you guys wrote. Yes?
So it was intro, and the body paragraph 1 is introducing your main point, really. And then was it 2 that was the counter argument?
So body 1 and 2 are your reasons that you gave in your thesis.
Reasons, right.
Body 3 is your counter argument or rebuttal.
Okay, got it.
And then this is obviously going to be on Populi always, so you guys can go back and look at all of that. So, does anybody have any other questions? Do you understand the layout of an argumentative essay?
I do, yeah.
The rest of you? Okay. So, ways for you to think of what you want to write about. I told you last class it can be something as simple as why Starbucks is better than Dunkin' to like a big political issue that's happening, okay? What you want to make sure that you do, though, if you do pick something that's really big, is that you narrow down specifically to a certain point of it. For example, if you were to write about abortion, okay, that's a lot that's out there. It's a huge thing. That would be better for like a research paper. This is a 5-paragraph essay, so you don't have a lot of room for stuff. So if you're going to talk about abortion, I would suggest that you hone in on one part of it, for example. I don't know, like, I can't even think of something specific to hone in about, but just think of like one side of that massive issue. Does that make sense? Because if you try to write about the whole thing, that's a lot to write about. So I would pick something that's pretty to the point, that's pretty focused. Some topics that I had recently, I had somebody write about why CC's is better than Papa John's. Not CC's, Little Caesars is better than Papa John's. I had somebody write about why the texture of food matters more than the flavor of food. I've had somebody write about the opposite of this, of why normal vehicles are better than electric vehicles. I had somebody write about why we don't need homework in school. Like, it can literally be anything at all that you want to. But some things that you need to think about when you're choosing your topic. Do you feel strongly about the topic? Remember that with an argumentative essay, remember when we did the analysis on the speeches? We talked about the speaker, we talked about their word choices. And we talked about, like, when we listened, for example, to the Martin Luther King speech, I Have a Dream. He was passionate about what he was talking about, right? And so he was able to use good words, very good phrases, strong word choices to convince you to feel the same way. So you need to feel strongly about a topic. Even if it's something silly, you should feel strongly about it. Does the topic have opposing viewpoints? So if it's not something that can be argued, then you can't write an argumentative essay. If nobody's arguing over why the sky is green, then you shouldn't write about why the sky is green, right? It should be something that has an opposite viewpoint. Do you have solid reasons to support your argument? So when you start looking into research, is there evidence out there for whatever you're supporting? If you can't find evidence, then again, you're not going to get a good essay out of that. Okay? Are we good on that? Sense? So this, let's see. I put it on in Populi, so let me try to get in there real quick. But I left you 2 example essays. Because I left you these examples, you're not allowed to pick these topics, okay? But it's going to be under this week's lesson, so this is lesson 8. So slideshow, and then this is notes that was supposed to go with this that I wasn't able to give you. But at the bottom of this, the last part. I might replace these notes with filled in notes, but so one of the things that's here, let me make this big. Is this, which is, calm down, which is a essay template. So it literally breaks it down for you again. What should go in your introduction, in the first body paragraph, in the second, and the third body, and then in your conclusion. Okay, so if you need like more of like a visual for it, it's there. And then you have this editing checklist. So I suggest that you go through this before you submit your paper. So does the introduction have everything that this says, your body paragraphs, your conclusion, and then conventions and organizations, so spelling, grammar, punctuation, capitalization, and you should have a works cited page as well, okay? And then here's one example essay. Again, I wouldn't follow this to a T because this doesn't follow like what I've taught you necessarily. It's just an example overall of a layout. And then another example essay is here. This is from another student. Also, I wouldn't follow it to a T because there's a little bit of errors in there, and so you don't want to do it exactly, but it does give you the layout. This is the one about Little Caesars being better than Papa John's. But so it is very well written. So look at their introduction, what did they put in there? Their transition words, their evidence, and how they put that stuff in there. So one of the things that, for instance, is wrong with this essay is she didn't put enough citations. I don't know if you noticed, but there's no citations in this one, for example. And so sometimes, again, errors that are missing, but they're good examples overall for how to lay out your essay, okay? So before you start writing, I suggest you also look at these example essays, look at how they're laid out, look at how they're written, and then kind of follow their example because they're well written, okay? So have you guys been thinking about what you want to write about at all? Yes? Anybody want to share?
Energy drinks.
What is your argument against what?
That they're not as bad as people think they are.
Okay, all right. They are, but that's okay.
Yeah.
All right, what else?
I was thinking Star Wars versus Star Trek.
Okay. All right, anything else? Have you decided? No? Have you decided? No? Okay, that's fine. Just be thinking about it. It's going to be due. So I would like it to be due let me look at my calendar really quick again. So remember, we'll have class next week, and then we won't have class the following. That's the week of Thanksgiving break, and
right.
I'm off, so I will not be here. You guys will have class, I think, for the other teachers, but I won't be here. And then after Thanksgiving break, we have 2 classes. It's the 2nd and the 9th, okay? So I would like you guys to have this essay turned in by December 2nd. And then that way, the 9th, we can go out for coffee.
Yay.
Okay. It's not that difficult of an essay, and I know you guys will have, the reason I want it to be done on the 2nd also is because you guys have final exams. I don't know if you guys do you guys have final tests in your other classes?
I don't think so.
Okay.
They haven't said anything about it.
They haven't really told us yet.
Okay. Sometimes you guys will have final exams, and so that last week you'll be studying for all of that. So I'd rather you have that time to do that. So just kind of mark your calendars. I'll go ahead and put it in Populi as well that the final essay will be due on the 2nd, and then we'll go grab coffee on the 9th.
Sweet.
All right. Okay. Reach out if you have questions after you've looked over the stuff that I've left for you. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I'm gonna work on having you guys'